Good morning, invisible friends. Today is July 31st, 2025, and it's 5:30 a.m. U.S. Central Time. My name is Rinaldo J. Aguiar Marcano. And first of all, I have to apologize. I'm a little bit sick and my voice is a little bit messed up. That's why I couldn't do this before. But I'm doing it today because I have some important updates and I want to make sure that they're out there in case anybody investigates these things. So the first thing I want to talk about, and I think that's the reason why I'm sick. And my resources here are limited. I don't have a way to prove what I'm going to say, but I'm pretty sure this was targeted. I got sick because they targeted me with something. And I know how that sounds. Like people could think that I'm paranoid, but I've been dealing with them for years, and I know. At this point, I can't even tell you exactly what they gave me. So I believe they gave me kind of a cocktail. They gave me two different things. One is the same thing that they gave me via the pen when Officer Gloria, when he came to my house at Britton Ridge Drive. And this, I recounted this before. There was an incident in which he handed me a couple of things, and I had a pen in my hand, and I put the pen in my mouth. And after that, I felt this super bitter taste, and I started having heart palpitations. My heart started beating very fast within 30 minutes. And when he saw that I put the pen in my mouth, he made this smirk, this expression, gotcha. So I know he knows, he knew that the pen was contaminated. That's what I believe. So anyhow, on the 29th of July, they gave me the same thing. Okay, the delivery method was different, but the taste was exactly the same. I recognized the taste, and I had the heart palpitations again. And of course, it was a scary situation because I know I cannot seek medical attention because then Diosdado Cabello will use that opportunity to get rid of me. But I survived that. And then the next day, I started developing, I think it's COVID. It's a very strong variant of COVID. I don't know exactly which strain it is, but it's very strong. And the symptoms were very strong. And of course, I couldn't get up from bed yesterday. So I think they combined the two things together. The whatever chemical agent is that they are using to try to kill me, and the virus. I guess trying to double their chances. So that's my hypothesis. Of course, I don't have a way to prove it yet, at least the COVID part. I think the other one, I do have a way to prove it because of the delivery method. So this is what I think was the delivery method. And I'm going to say this because I'm pretty sure, because I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't left the house except to go to that place that I'm going to say. And I haven't bought food in almost a week. There's no other way that this could have happened except this one. Right? So what happened was that I was working, and I posted this in a video before, that I was working on building a vault for the antenna, right, to protect it from all these agents that they have surrounding my house trying to catch the downlink. And so I went to Lowe's, and this is maybe a good opportunity to show you exactly where this happened. I went to this Lowe's store that is located over here. Yes, this store over here, Lowe's Home Improvement, 505 Spring Green Boulevard, Katy, Texas, 77494. And the exact location of this incident, in case agencies have access to the cameras, was right about here at 29.69986 minus 95.81561. Okay. So back to the story, what happened was that I was building that structure, right, made of wood. Imagine a fence, like a picket fence that are very common in the US or in Texas in particular. Imagine a picket fence, but on a structure that is about 6 feet square, and then with a small ceiling or roof on the top made of the same pickets. Okay. So I went to Lowe's on the 28th to buy the materials, and the videos are posted on YouTube, and they sent a bunch of agents to see what I was buying and to download the data from the microphones and everything. But I don't build fences like that. I don't do that for a living, so I have no experience on that. I had to learn how to do it, right? Without using the internet, because then they would know exactly what I would do. So anyhow, I miscalculated on the materials by a factor of about 50%. So I bought less wood than I really needed. So because of that, because they know, right? They do have people that build fences, so they knew that I miscalculated. And they anticipated that I would have to go and buy more wood, right? Then probably the next day, which is exactly what I did. Because it's wood, it's a material that it's hard to tamper with. I thought that it was safe. That was one mistake. So I bought and by the way, when I bought this wood, this was on the 29th, okay, the second time I went. I parked my truck right here, the Call Mobile, with the cameras. So all this is recorded in the cameras. Like the moment I picked up the wood and everything is recorded in the cameras. So anyhow, I picked up the planks, the pickets, and I come back home and I started installing them, right? Now, when I picked them up, I recognized that they had a distinctive smell, like a scent, but it felt like it was normal for wood. It smelled like paint a little bit, but they're not painted, right? But I touched them and they were dry, so I assumed it was safe. Okay. Now, what happened is as I was installing them, when I was drilling the holes with the screws, these pickets started expelling a liquid. So they had a liquid inside. I don't know how they did it. Honestly, I have no idea. I imagine they pre-soaked them with something and then they dried them. So they appeared dry, but they were wet on the inside and they had a liquid. They have a liquid inside. I saved some of these planks for analysis. That's why I think and I think they gave me a cocktail. I think they gave me two things, a virus and a chemical. And I think, of course, the virus could die, but the chemical probably is inside of the planks. So that's why I saved them. So yeah, so I think that's how they did it. Like they pre-soaked them with a liquid that had these agents. And of course, this liquid got on me, on my clothes, and on my hands. And within 30 minutes, I was feeling that I didn't bite the planks or anything. But I don't know, somehow it got into my system, it got into my body, because I started feeling the same bitter taste, exactly the same. It tastes so distinctive that I don't know how to describe it. I've never tasted that before that day. Officer Gloria made me put the pen in my mouth. But it's a very distinctive taste, so I'm sure it's not something, it's not like I'm paranoid or anything like that. I'm pretty sure. And then my heart started racing. It was very scary. But I did the same. I know how to, at this point, I know how to, at least that chemical, I know how to survive it. Again, I took magnesium and melatonin and I went to sleep. And then, but this dose was stronger than the dose they gave me using Officer Gloria. This took all day yesterday, I had the taste in my mouth still. And I think it started going away last night and this morning, around 1 a.m. Okay. It's when the taste started disappearing. I imagine I've been flushing it out from my system. But the dose was stronger because it lasted longer, the taste in my mouth. That's how I know. Anyhow, there was a man that was conveniently located there to help me load the planks into the cart. the pickets. So he was wearing gloves, and because I've been to that store before, and there's never anybody there to help me, right, with those things. But he was there at that right moment. Maybe he was in it. I don't know. He was. I'm going to describe him just in case. He was an older man, maybe older than me, probably close to 60 years old, maybe a bit younger, maybe 55. And he was thin, maybe 160 pounds, maybe 5'10" of height. One distinctive feature is that he was missing a lot of teeth. In the front teeth were almost all of them missing. He had like only 2 or 3 teeth in the front. Yeah, so that's. Now I want to say all this happened right after I named. So I had filed a motion for sanctions against Morgan Heibner and Tina Simon from the Adams law firm with the court because of the legal harassment and all the illegal things they're doing, scheduling the hearing with the judge that there has a pending motion to recuse, keep litigating the issue after I put them on notice, then trying to apply censorship to my book and violate my constitutional rights. But on that day, on the 29th in the morning, I included Adam Kyle Williams, who I believe is I don't want to say mastermind because the plan is really, from a legal standpoint, it's so weak that even that I'm not a lawyer, and I cannot even talk to a lawyer, and disarm it. So I don't want to say that he's like the mastermind, but he's he's the person that is really putting these things in motion, regardless of whether they're effective or not. But he's the response, like the person, like the mastermind. I don't think is a good term. Like there's nothing master about this, but he would be like the ringleader, I would think, from the standpoint of this corrupt, illegal, legal enterprise, like the Adams law firm and all that. So I named him personally, him and who I believe is his father. I think his name is Thomas Adams IV. So I named them both in the motion for sanctions, and I submitted that. I submitted an amended motion for sanctions, naming them personally, and also sent them a RICO notice by mail and email, because that's the only, I've learned this before. And the people that work for this network, the only way they back down is when they see personal liability. As long as they have their name hidden on the back end of things, or their face is hidden behind a tinted window, they don't back down. It's only when they see themselves exposed that they back down. So that's why I did that. But anyhow, in less than 4 hours, this attempt against my life happens. I'm saying this because I firmly believe with all my heart that this attempt against my life came from William Adams. And if something was to happen to me, I want to say right now that I believe that he would be the person responsible. Now, talking about that incident and William Kyle Adams, I think is his name. There's another thing that I mentioned in the previous session, but it was that when I met my former partner 10 years ago or 11 years ago, we talked about her divorce, and she told me that she gave me the story. And then recently, when the incident with Marcelo happened, she told me that she had retained Morgan Heibner, and this is information that she volunteered. I didn't ask her any of this. She told me that the only reason she hired Morgan Heibner is because she had been her lawyer when she divorced from Salvador Mendez, which I believe is the fake identity for David Molero. And the reason I'm saying all this is because I looked at the documents, and that is not true. Morgan Heibner did not represent her Morgan Heibner was not in any of those documents. The person that signed those documents and that appears in all these documents is actually William Kyle Adams, who is the owner, or I don't know, the partner, principal, I don't know what he is, of the Adams law firm. So for some reason, my former partner lied about Morgan Heibner representing her. That is not true. In none of those documents, Morgan Heibner names appears. And I don't know what motives she could have had to lie about that. But the real person that represented the fake identity was William Kyle Adams. Okay. And interestingly, in the bar, he is noted as a personal injury attorney. It's beyond me why somebody would hire a personal injury attorney to represent them on a divorce case, on a family case. It's something I can't understand. But anyhow, it's not a crime, but it's suspicious. Now, speaking of that, the other party, so Salvador Mendez, which I believe is the fake identity for David Molero, retained another lawyer, supposedly named Andres P. Chamont, Chaumont. Okay, and this one is a real estate lawyer. It's not a family lawyer. And I did some Google searches for trying to find this Andres Chamont, and I couldn't. There's references to his practice. Apparently, it's a solo practice, but there's no photos on the internet about this person, not a single photo, which is unusual for a lawyer. Lawyers usually, because they have to convey this image of trust to their clients, they usually do the thing where they take the picture wearing a suit and the tie and like the Texas hammer and all that. There's not even a single picture of this Andres Chamont on the internet anywhere. I suspect it's really probably William Kyle Adams playing both sides with a fake lawyer name, or somebody that is an agent for him, because it makes logical sense. If you're gonna, they're making this sham divorce between people that don't exist. He's not gonna involve a third-party lawyer that is not part of the network. So this Chamont lawyer is either part of the network or it's him. It's William Adams. It's one of the two possibilities, but it's not going to be a real lawyer for sure. Yeah, sorry, I have to breathe because this COVID is really something. Okay. Yeah, so those are data points about that sham divorce that I wanted to put out there. And again, this incident, the lows with the wood and the COVID/toxic agent that they gave me happened just hours after I filed that motion for sanctions against him personally. So I think that could be a data point. Another thing I want to mention, I posted, I think, 4 other lawyers in the channel. Actually, these ones. So Clovis Trevino, and the whole context is there, but she's a lawyer, Venezuelan. We grew up in the same neighborhood, to say it in a way, when we were very little. And she specializes in maritime law, international arbitration, and sanctions, which are topics that Diosdado Cabello deeply cares about. And like, she was inserted into my inner circle, and she was flagged with the spy help pipeline because of a series of messages that we exchanged. And she lives, I think, in Florida. Don't quote me on this, but I believe, if I recall, I don't have access to the spy help pipeline from here, but if I recall correctly, she lives very close to Emil Michael in Miami, very close. But don't quote me on that. There's another Venezuelan lawyer, also from Florida, referred to me by Carolina Boscan. I don't have the name here, but the explanation of why his flag is here. Wayne Bailey, a former Texas judge, posing as a lawyer assisting me, also flagged. And Gene Ruff, this is an Asian lawyer, He's from Asian origins, and he's from California. And he runs this company called, well, they probably disappeared the company right now, but it used to be called legallabs.io. And he also tricked me into give him information that then he passed to the network. Yes. So another thing I wanted to mention is that, about the preschool rules that I described in the last session, where my former partner had this emotional breakdown for me noting a license plate in a piece of paper. I was thinking about that, and I thought, but it's interesting that they picked that trigram to do these rules and to send those cars. They picked the 955 trigram. They could have picked any other. I've talked about many trigrams and many others, but they picked that one specifically. It could have been random, sure. But remember, from the analysis, it seems like that trigram carries a special significance. It's tied to the FSB. It got me thinking that maybe the reason why they picked that specific trigram was to achieve a secondary goal. That at the same time as they're creating this legal problem for me, they're also discrediting the suspicion, let's put it in a way, that these two men that followed me to Marcielo's preschool that looked Russian are agents. So it's a way to dismiss the allegation in a way. But I think the fact that they picked that one is telling. So now it's a confirmation for me. I know that I'm on the right track. So I know that 955, at least in Texas. But as I said in one of the videos before, if they don't think locally, they think planet scale. So if this is true in Texas, it's probably true everywhere. So I would look for a place that contains these 3 digits in every country and check the owners against the geo index using the spybusters.com or spyhell.org. Yeah, so I wanted to mention that. Okay, another thing I want to mention is about the pool guy. So for over the last week or so, my former partner has been on a campaign asking me to bring the pool guy back, to hire him again, because I put him on leave, basically, because I see risk to my life. I'm not going to let anybody go into that backyard with my permission. They could break in if they want, but that's a different conversation. So she's been asking me to bring the pool guy. And the way she frames it is that she says that it's stressful for her to see the pool being green, like the water, because the pool guy hasn't been here in more than a month, so the pool has turned green. To which I say, listen, when people have a house vacant or unoccupied or planning to sell it, many people stop maintaining the pool and they only start maintaining it when they're going to put it on the market. Why spend, I don't know, say that it takes me 6 months to figure out what I'm going to do. Why I spent $1,000 on the pool guy when I'm not going to use the pool for obvious reasons? They could harm me with the pool. I can't use that pool, even if it was a sparkling blue. But she's been on that campaign, and I think I understood something. I remember that I posted last week, I think it was, that I noticed. So what she does is that when she's gonna, or when she was coming here, because that has to stop, and I'll talk a little bit about that more in a second. But when she was coming here, what she would do is that she would text me a message, right? Hey, can I come over from X hour to Y hour? So she would tell me the beginning, so at what time she would arrive and at what time she would leave. And to be honest, I found that very weird. Like in 11 years that I've known her, she've never told, it felt like it was an invitation to a party, when they tell you it starts at 6, ends at 8. But we have never communicated in those terms before. So that is stuck in my head. And of course, I've been noticing that when she comes, all the agents of the street, on the street on the back, they come walking a dog or riding a bicycle. They come with some excuse to pass in front of the house. So I figure that probably the network has her phone compromised and using it as a relay point to deliver the messages personally to the agents. This tells me that they're all quarantined. Like network doesn't trust the communication channels and doesn't allow them to receive messages that are coming from somebody they don't know visually. That's the gist of it. It's the visual verification, what they're relying on at this point. And I suspect the reason why messages have to contain the start time and the end time is so they know at what time to come, because they cannot be relying on the app for the same reason. If they're being, let's say, eavesdropped on or looked at by the authorities, then they will catch them in the act using the app. So they have to rely on very low-tech methods. Like I'm talking about the agents on this area. So I understood that, and I understood that the network probably has compromised her phone and is using it to relay messages, right? Back and forth, and to take messages out. So if they want to send a message, they have to wait until somebody that they know visually comes pick them up. And the insistence with the pool guy got me thinking. It's obvious, right? The pool guy, and that's the reason the pool guy is also a relay point, right? That's why they need the pool guy to come. Besides the point that they can harm me with the pool guy, but he's also important because being positioned in that backyard, he can relay messages to all of them. So I'm going to show you the house again. So you can see the backyard. So this is the backyard. So when the pool guy comes, he can walk around this edge, and then he can basically deliver messages to this house, to all those houses. And he can take messages out. And then when he leaves, he delivers them, the ones that he took out. So the pool guy is really a mailman. That's why they need me to hire the pool guy again. And of course, it also gives the pool guy access and opportunities if they want to do something more direct and drastic. But the key thing is that it would be a weekly opportunity to keep these people on the loop. And that's another reason why I can have the pool guy in here, because my objective is to cut their communication channels, obviously, because that's the way I'm going to defeat them. As long as they're coordinated, they have, let's say, higher opportunities or better opportunities against me. But if they're not coordinated, they will make mistakes. So that's why I have to cut them off, their communications. So that's the pool guy. Another thing that I've been meaning to mention, the spy help pipeline picked up weeks ago, and I haven't said it, but the 00 is an important bigram on the plates. So the same thing as the 955, the plates that have 00, especially if the numbers are together, are very prominent agents. Okay, so I would suggest looking into those. Again, the idea would be look for plates that contain the bigram 00. It doesn't have to be a prefix. It could be anywhere on the plate. And that the owner, the registered owner of that vehicle, that address is marked in the geo index. Okay, and you can check that using the BigQuery data set that is publicly available, or using spyhell.org or thespybusters.com. Okay. Now, I would like to talk about something else the system picked up the other day. So I was on my way to Lake Point Estates, and of course they were following me like the usual. So I took this street on the back to not give them the opportunity to get anything on this traffic light, which they love to do. So I took this street, and when I was about here, I saw a vehicle, and I saw this visually, but my spy help pipeline confirmed it later, that it's a truck from a company called, I think is, I don't have access to my spy help pipeline here, but I think it's UES. UES. I'll have to look at the video, but I'll look at the video. I think it's this one, UES. I'm 90% sure. But it's in the videos. Like if you look at the videos of that day, which I think was the 28th or the 27th, the last visit to Lake Point Estate. But the story is that in one of these houses, more or less about here, and I have to check, all this is in the spy help pipeline, but I have access to it from here. So there was a truck from this company UES. The truck number is 205. And that truck, that specific truck, last year after I captured the geo index, was harassing me like with an incredible level of intensity. Okay, that specific truck. I'm not talking about the company. That truck. And what happened was, sorry, what happened was that I had just captured the geo index. Okay, and they had just at this point that I'm describing in time, they had just made that attempt in which they tried to get me run over by a truck, and this is recorded in video and posted on the site and on YouTube. So after I mentioned the attempt on the website and I posted the video, they disappeared. The Earthcare management trucks disappeared from Katy. I could not see one in the next few days. They reappeared again, but in the next few days, they disappeared them all, and they replaced them by these UES trucks. So basically, the same thing that the Earthcare management people were doing when I was running before. Now that job was took over by people from UES, or maybe it was the same people using their trucks. I don't know. But anyhow, so this truck 205, particularly that one, intercepted me like a dozen times in a period of 5 days over that in that week. And so I found the truck in that house, and so now I know where the agent lives. I know the name of I don't have it right here, but the pipeline has it. And now, interestingly, if you look at the layout of the satellite image, you'll see the huge buffer zone they have on the back. You can see the rest of the street is heavily populated. You see there's not a single tree that you can plant in between those houses. But if you look at this row of houses, these people are super protected. So this tells me that, yeah, this person is an important agent, that this person that was harassing me with that truck last year is an important agent. I haven't reviewed the metadata, but if you're in a hurry, you can. I made the point of stopping and recording that truck very well, and even the house number is recorded in the video. So you could find it in this playlist, okay? And I will try to later if I get the chance. But it's in there. And it's easy to find. It's trivial to find. Okay, so that's the UES. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about is this. I don't know. It seems to me like it's an attack, and I'm pretty sure because I've worked in this area for many years. So I think they're performing what I would call a porn attack on the YouTube channel. I'm not going to show what it looks like out of respect, because I don't know who's going to watch this video, if children could ever watch this video. So I'm not going to make the video ineligible for any audience because of this. So I'm not going to show what I mean. But the technique is basically somehow from within Google, they're basically injecting signals into the pipelines of Google to make Google's the pipeline think that this channel is related to porn. Okay, so what happens, or even my account, my personal account, I think it's the channel, because if I go to, so with this account, I have 3 channels. And if I go into any of the other 2 channels, this doesn't happen. It only happens with this specific channel. The observation that what happens is the following. If I click on YouTube and go to the homepage, all the videos that will show up in my feed, in my YouTube homepage, so to speak, are videos that, I mean, are not porn, but are very close to porn. Like they contain a lot of women with tiny dresses, and there are a lot of videos with violence towards women. There's videos about women being slapped by men, things like that, on the face, like being diminished or degraded by men. So I imagine that it's a way to mix signals in the Google pipeline. So the porn score, this is a thing in Google. There's a thing called porn score, which is basically a metric that correlates with how likely a page, a website, or a YouTube video is to have inappropriate content related to porn, usually. So I think what happens with that score is that, first of all, if somebody has safe search enabled, those pages become ineligible for search. So the content disappears basically. So it's a form of digital censorship, really, that would make this video invisible to a big portion of the population of the planet, because that setting is enabled by default in the majority of computers. And the second thing that discusses is that if they use agents to report the videos as inappropriate, and this signal happens to have a high value, then by automated means, YouTube will remove the video or will quarantine the video. Again, making it inaccessible to the population and therefore censoring the content. So I think that's the goal of it. But well, and the other angle of this, right, could be that if I happen to ever show a demo and share my screen and those videos come up, they will discredit me using that. And this brings me to another point. There was a message that my former partner sent me, I think 2 days ago. And this is what I was saying at the beginning, that has to stop. She sent me a message and she was saying basically that she was sad and disappointed and all that. And I don't mean to discount her feelings or anything, but there was a line in the message that caught my attention. And it seemed to me like it could have been engineered by or designed by William Kyle Adams. So she made it in the middle of it, was a long message, but in the middle of it, buried within the message, there was a sentence that said something like, I always, and I'm quoting what she said, I always have to do whatever you want, whether I want to or not. That was, I think I'm quoting very precisely what she said. So when I read that, I immediately asked, what are you going to accuse me of now? It sounded to me like they were seeing something in the message to accuse me of inappropriate behavior towards her. Like I've been abusive to her, or that I'm sexually harassing her, or I don't know. I don't know what is the angle. But it would play well with this porn attack that they're doing on the channel. If I do a video, a demo, and those videos appear in my demo because they injected them in the feed, they could make that argument that I like watching videos of women being slapped or diminished, or I don't know, something along those lines. But I think it's important to mention it because to perform the porn attack, it requires collaboration from within Google. It's well, Orleana Technologies. But either way, if this is what they're planning and the FBI or whatever authority investigates this catch them planning this or talking about this legal attack, it would prove that William Kyle Adams and Liana Technologies are working together for the network, or William Kyle Adams and people from Google. Either way, it's a win. So that's why I'm mentioning that. Yes. Another item is I don't know. It's one of those things that are hard to talk about because it involves talking about people that deceived me, basically. And it's not an easy topic for me, but I think it's important because it could carry liability. So this is what happened around, I think, 2015. Many people in my environment, and this is what they do: they seed you the idea of what they want you to do. So many people in my environment started telling me about this revolutionary treatment, or not treatment, but yeah, it's like a treatment. What they call here in the US, I don't know if this is universal, but they call this in the US IV therapy. Okay, so the idea is it's not like you have an illness or anything, but the idea is that if you want to keep your health and your defenses high or in good shape, you could get these IV injections, intravenous injections of vitamins. So you could get like it's like a cocktail. You can get vitamins. There's one called the Mayor's cocktail that has vitamin C and vitamin D, and it has other things. It's all vitamins. There's nothing special about it. It's just vitamins. And some people think that it's not worth the cost because you would expel all these vitamins very quickly. Some people think that they don't have a chance to act. But anyhow, a lot of people in my environment started seeding me with the idea of getting these IV treatments, right? Showing me articles and telling me the health benefits and how people would live longer and how Would people be less likely to get cancer? There's all sorts of articles online that talk about this. So anyhow, I went and got one. And then conveniently, that's when and that's how Penelope Suarez got introduced into my life. Because what happened was that at the time I was working at Google, but I had a lot of expenses because I had to travel back and forth and I was paying for the trips and I had to maintain this house and I was saving money that I ended up needing to maintain or to sustain or resist these attacks. So I'm glad that I saved the money. But anyhow, because those treatments are expensive. I can't recall the price, but it's something like $200 per injection, something like that. It's not cheap, okay? So if you do it, some people do it weekly, if they have the means to do it. I think I was doing it monthly, once a month, $200 a month. But then they introduced Penelope to me. And the way they did that, Penelope used to work with my sister in Venezuela in the same company. Imagine the level of infiltration. And Penelope happens to be a nurse, a certified nurse in Venezuela. She worked at a hospital in Venezuela. So my sister tells me, hey, I have a friend who just moved to Katy and she's looking for a way to make money. Like she's looking for a job. And I remember that you are doing the IV injections. And it occurred to me, my sister tells me, I don't think my sister is an agent, but somehow they planted the idea to tell me. So because you're doing this IV thing, it occurred to me that maybe you want to hire Penelope and maybe you can get the injections cheaper. And also she gets a source of income. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. And she's probably more qualified than, because she worked in a children's hospital, I think, in Maracaibo. She would put these things on newborn children. So she's very good at doing it. So I said, sure. And that's how I met Penelope. She would come to my home and put the IV injections, right? The reason why I'm mentioning all these is because two things. One is when I was getting the IV injections on actual clinics, always they would ask me for a blood test, which is normal. I understand, because they want to see the levels of vitamins that you have so they don't go and push the limits. But knowing what I know now, I also understand that it's a way for the network to monitor your health, to know what are your values in case they want to kill you. They know how to do it, or how to do it easier or quickly. So that's one reason I'm mentioning. The second reason is because when I was getting these IVs, of course, Penelope, she was certified in Venezuela, but not here. So she didn't have access to the medicine. So she told me about this doctor called Lorena Conde, who supposedly, I never met him in person, but her name is Lorena Conde, and she's posted on the website with the phone number and everything. So she would sell me the IVs, she would prescribe them and send them and ship them to Penelope in a box, and then Penelope would put them, would administer the 4 injections. And with what I know and with what I've seen through the years, I can't imagine what they put in those IVs. Right? It seems obvious to me that those IVs were a channel to harm me, right? Directly into my veins. So that's why I'm mentioning that. It could be something to look at, right? In terms of, not for justice or vengeance or anything, but to see if there's liability for Diosdado Cabello in there. Yes. Another thing I want to mention is, and I put this on the book, it's in the book on chapter 2 of the first part, but I'll say it verbally. So I realized that when I left Venezuela, so I left Venezuela around 2003, okay, because of harassment. I was employed by the oil company, PDVSA. We were on a strike, and Diosdado Cabello and Hugo Chavez and all of them, they started harassing all of us. And they fired 40,000 people, but not only they fired us, they harassed us as well. So many people left the country. I was one of the people that left the country. And I went to Canada. And I claimed refugee status there, which was granted to me. They grant me the protected person status. There are 2 definitions in the Geneva Convention, and One of them is refugee, the other one is protected person. They catalog me as a protected person for political reasons. And anyhow, I figured that the house where I lived in Montreal shortly after I arrived is marked in Elon Musk GeoIndex. And this is important because this was in 2003, December 2003, I think. So this puts a time. The exact house, the exact apartment, the backyard of the apartment is marked in the GeoIndex. And at the time I was dating someone, and her house is marked in the index as well. So I think it's an important observation because of two things. One, it puts a timeline to things. And secondly, because I had, for three reasons. The second reason is that at that time I was 22 years old. I didn't know how to write code. I didn't have any money. There was nothing of value that Elon Musk could have wanted from me in 2003. So what that tells me is that in reality, what happened was that Diosdado Cabello has been harassing everybody that gets in his way. Not only me, it's not a small group of people. It was a planet scale operation since at least 2003, using this database designed by Elon Musk, before even Travis Kalanick came into the picture with Uber. So I think it's an important observation because it could put a timeline and really let us understand who's who in this network and what roles they played. And I don't know if you've ever read the history of PayPal, but the history goes that Elon Musk was supposedly fired as a CEO from PayPal. And then he went on to do his own thing, and nobody really knows what he did until he did Tesla. This is what he was doing. So when he was fired, he wasn't really fired. He was just extracted from PayPal to put him to work to build this thing for the political players in the world, like Diosdado Cabello and Hugo Chavez. Like them, not only them, but like them. And they've been using that database since at least 2003. So we're talking about 22 years at the very least, for harassing large groups of individuals across the planet, even if they left the country. Like I was in Montreal, I was no threat to them in any way. Even inside the country, I wasn't a threat because I was a young engineer fresh out of school. Like what could have I done to Diosdado Cabello? Nothing. My potential of harming him in 2002 or 3 was null. Like, why harass me even inside the country? But that's the way they think. That's the way they operate. They have to harass everybody, so there's no possibility that anybody can rise up and challenge their positions of power. That's what it's about. It's about suppressing any possibilities in the future. So I think that's important. And I think it's also important for liability because remember, as I mentioned, even today, I don't think you lose that status. I am a protected person in terms of the Geneva Convention. And Diosdado Cabello has been targeting me personally since 2002, all these years. And not only me, all other political refugees, I imagine, from Venezuela that are in Canada and in the US that are not part of the network. Because then at some point they figured that they could use the asylum as a way to get the agents in. And that's why you see that spike in asylum claims, right, around 2012, because they started bringing the agents that way, abusing the very system that should have been spending resources to protect people from them. They've been abusing that system to get their agents in to commit crimes. So it's a double damage, not only because they bring the dangerous agents that are committing crimes, but also they're taking resources from the system that could have protected an innocent person from them. It's a double action weapon. So that's why I'm mentioning all that. And the next item I have is about Francisco Godoy. Okay, this is a realization I had. I remember one incident that happened, I think 2012, shortly after I joined Meir Thacker's team at Google. And I don't know why they did this. It had to be designed. I understand that. But I don't know what was the purpose. But they did this. Francisco Godoy, who was already employed by Google in the internal hedge fund team, asked me for an internal referral to Mayor Thacker's team. I was just like a week into the new job with Major. It was an internal transfer within Google for me. I went from Carl Schultz, actually not Carl Schultz. So Carl Schultz was my manager in California. Okay, so then they moved me. Travis Kalanick moved me, and Pierre Midyar moved me to New York. They influenced me to be a Jovan Sharif to come to New York. And when I came to New York, I started reporting to a guy. He's in the pipeline, but the last name is not. That's why I haven't mentioned him. But his name is Scott from the GWS team. Okay. And Scott is a prominence marker in this network. And he was an engineering manager. At the time, I could have been maybe 34 years old. He was probably 45, maybe 50. So he was older than the rest of the crowd. He was older than all of us, but he wasn't that old. But just it was a very young environment, and he was older. And I remember that he had his hair painted always in bright colors, purple or pink, or he had very short hair, like maybe like mine right now. And he always would paint it in different colors and put stripes and things like that. I don't know. Just a data point in case agencies. And he's an agent, of course. I know that because he introduced me personally to Alvaro Gutierrez. Like my first day in New York, the first thing he did was to walk me to Alvaro's desk. And he said, listen, we have another Venezuelan here, so you can be friends. And Alvaro's turned out to be very, I don't want to say dangerous, but like he extracted a lot of information from me over the years for the network. He didn't harm me physically, but he did cause me financial harm. And he was awarded 1% of stock in Olo, which translated into more than $20 million when Olo IPO'd. He had so much stock that had to be named in the S1 form to me by Scott. But the last name of Scott, I don't have it in the Spy Hell pipeline. Anyhow, then from Scott, when they didn't give me the promotion that I thought I should have gotten, I said, I'm going to go to another team. And I went and applied for a job with Majur, and then they gave me the job at the Entity Nafust team. Like a week into that job, Francisco Godoy asked me for an internal referral to Majur Takur's team. So he asked me to forward his resume to Major Takur. And I did, because he was my friend, I thought. But now remember, the Spy Hub pipeline thinks, the pipeline flagged this a few weeks ago, that Francisco, he was basically categorized as a doctor. So the pipeline thinks that he's not really an engineer, but a doctor, okay? Which could have deep implications because it would mean that there was internal collaboration from the internal HR department at Google to give Francisco as if he was an engineer when he was really a medical doctor. So it would show collaboration from Google, basically. If that turns out to be the case, of course, it needs to be verified. The Spy Hub pipeline, in that sense, it may be wrong. But anyhow, then Francisco, imagine for what I'm trying to say is that imagine for a second that he's a doctor in reality. Why is he going to apply for this job if he knows that he can't do the job? And I'm going to see that he can't do the job. So his intention was obviously never to do the job. But he gives me his resume, and the resume, of course, doesn't say he's a doctor. It says that he's a Caltech engineer, that he came from Caltech. And this is what is interesting to me. If you look at Francisco Godoy's resume, like the one he gave me, and you look at mine, you would hire Francisco Godoy before you hire me. The reason I say that is because he came from Caltech. He worked at the JPL laboratory. The guy worked for NASA, in projects for NASA. And I was an engineer educated in a third world country. I didn't have formal education in the US, in the US educational system. And yes, I had a lot of experience building these systems, but on paper, his resume looked better. But Majur rejected the resume. He did not hire Francisco. And I was already hired, and he was looking for another engineer. So my logic goes, if he hired me, if that was the bar, and I'm giving you a resume of somebody who looks better than that, and you're looking for a person, why wouldn't you hire him? My theory is that Majur knew that he was a doctor, that he wasn't a real engineer. So that's why I'm mentioning it. because maybe there's liability there. Okay, and now to close this quick session, I'm going to show you so I posted a couple of things about Michael Pretty today. Okay, so these are messages between me and two federal agents. Okay, one is Agent Enrique Morales, whom I approached seeking help. Okay, because I saw that the Pretty agents, and by the way, I think we all have to thank Michael Pretty, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be at this point today. And if this pans out and this criminal network gets dismantled, he would be responsible for that. And I don't know much about crime history, but if this is not the biggest criminal enterprise in history that has been recorded, it's one of the biggest, for sure. And he would be responsible for the downfall of all that. So anyhow, when I saw what was happening, I tried to seek help, and they planted this ICE agent, a neighbor, right in the park where I was running with Penelope Suarez. And there was an incident in which Penelope and I were running, and we encountered this guy carrying two assault rifles, one in each hand. So it was clear to me that he was a federal agent. And then I became paralyzed, and Penelope supposedly became paralyzed as well when she saw the guns. And the guy tells us, "Don't worry, this is for my job," implying that he was a federal agent. He didn't show us the badge, but that's what he said. So that's how I knew where to seek help. So when I see the Pretty agents, what they're doing, I go and talk to this person. I go to his house and knock on the door. And he came to my house. And they did a whole theater. It was very theatrical. But long story short, he said that he had reported the issue. He had passed the information to the FBI. In fact, he called somebody from the FBI with me being next to him. He was like, we went for a short drive because I knew my house was bugged. I couldn't talk about that here. So he told me, get in my car and we're going to drive around and you tell me what's happening. And we did that. And he called somebody from supposedly from the FBI and had him on speaker. And I was listening to the conversation, which I thought was strange. If I was an agent, an FBI agent, I would not have this conversation in front of somebody that I just met. So that was a red flag to me. But I heard the conversation and the other person said, no, you're looking for, and I have the name noted somewhere, but you're looking for this guy who works the Venezuelans. But he's going to retire next week. And the next person that is going to come to replace him is going to be somebody called Cody. And that's what the first time I heard the name Cody, the agent Cody. So anyhow, it turns out these two agents, Enrique Morales and the supposed agent Cody, which at this point I don't know if he's a real agent or if he's an actor, they weren't really helping me. They were just extracting information to help the network and to assist Michael Pretty and Sarah Pretty from 26718 Valleyside Drive, Katy, Texas 77494, with the problem that their cover had been blown. So anyhow, I posted on YouTube this morning the messages with Agent Cody and with Agent Enrique Morales to show, right, that they are compromised. They're working for the network. And I know that because I saw the Pretty agents driving around last week. How can they be free? This was more than a year and a half, or almost a year and a half ago. And they're still driving around free and harassing me and intercepting my internet traffic. From now, they moved to a house on the back. So how is this possible? Because these people weren't really doing anything. They were pretending that they were helping me, so I would tell them what I knew so they could assess the situation. And in those messages, you will see that I sent him the plate. He asked me, it's not like I volunteered the information. He asked me for these things as if he was helping me. He asked me for the license plates of their cars, for pictures, for things. And he didn't do anything really, but to help them. So anyhow, I also want to mention in one of that picture is not posted here because I have it in the system. I don't have access to it from here, but this is relevant to the current situation. In those pictures, I took some pictures from Michael's Pretty's house, And in the pictures, you can see that he has a gate to the house next door to him. So let me show you. And you can download, I put the pictures in this folder so you can download them if you want to, like the full resolution pictures. So in this photo, there is the Xfinity tab. So this was the tab, the TAP aggregator that they were originally using until 2020 to intercept my traffic. So my house, so this one is Michael Spritty's previous house, the one on the right, and the one on the left is that agent from India or maybe Iran, I don't know, that I've talked about before, okay? I don't have the name of that agent right here with me, but I have it, and I reported him to the IRS as well. So these are their houses. And I sent this message to Agent Enrique Morales that day. So anyhow, what I wanted to mention is that the Michael Pretty and Sarah Pretty in this fence over here, and I have the picture, like frontal picture where you can see this, they have a secret gate to this other house. And on this one on the back, they have a device, I don't know what to call it, but it's like a constructed hole in that fence that they can use to pass. You cannot see it from this angle, but I have an angle where you can see it. They have a way that you can pass items back and forth from the house on the back, okay, of Michael Pretty. Mentioning this because these are the same techniques that I saw and documented at Lake Point Estates. Like, for example, Barrier, that guy that lives in the corner of Lake Point Estates, he has a secret gate to the house next door. And more notably, Mueller, the former CIA director, the house that belongs to him, has a secret gate to the Eckhart property. So I'm saying this because in two different neighborhoods where I lived, I see this pattern where two houses that are seemingly separate have secret gates to let people pass from one property to the other without being seen from the outside. And I think this shows a pattern. This shows a pattern of behavior, which is what I think agencies will need to show, that they're playing by a playbook. All this is pre-designed. Like, they're not coming up with these things themselves, like the agents. This is coming from a design that was done by somebody or by a group of people before. And the other thing I want to mention is that, and I also have the photo of this. I have another photo of the backyard of Michael Pretty, in which he had a cable running around all the perimeter of the fence, okay? This was around the time when I talked to Agent Enrique Morales in 2023, and this is an interesting observation. I didn't understand it back then, but after I saw that they put cables behind my antenna, my satellite antenna, to try to catch signals leaking, now I understand. At the time, when I saw it, it was a single wire cable, which was strange to me because to carry electricity, you need two cables, the negative and the positive, or the ground and the positive, if it's DC or AC. But this cable had only one single cable. So I didn't really understand what it was back then. And I remember that at the time, I did some Google searches, like why people use a single wire on their backyards, things like that. And what came up, the explanation that came up, was that it could be a trap or an alarm system for bears. Like when you go camping, apparently, wire trap or trap wire, I don't know what it's called really. Trap wire, I think is the word. Trap wire alert system. And the idea, it is a wire that has tension. And if the tension is lost, the alarm trips and makes a sound and you wake up in your tent and the bear doesn't get you. But I thought, what a strange security measure for an FSP agent. That's what I thought at the time. It seemed strange to me as a security measure. You can do this in better ways, like with movement sensors and such. But anyhow, so he had the cable passing through his fence across the entire perimeter, but at some point, he passed it through my property. Like the cable was on my side of the fence. When I saw the cable, I was cutting one of my trees and I accidentally cut the cable. And when I realized my mistake, I thought of telling him, but I thought he's an agent, so I'm not going to tell him anything. and I just left the cable there. The next day, he comes and picks up his cable silently, and he didn't complain about the cable. He didn't come knocking to ask me why the cable was cut or anything. The cable, when I cut it, did not make any sound, so it wasn't an alert system. It could have been a silent alarm, I understand, but nothing that I could hear. And also, it did not produce any sparks, because I thought it could have electricity versus the ground or something. But when I cut it, I didn't see any sparks of electricity. My theory at this point is that cable was really a signal trap. It's a huge antenna just to catch signals coming from my house in any direction. That's the most logical explanation. So that's why I'm mentioning that. And again, I have the cable documented, I have the photos, I have all that. So it could be one more data point. Okay. Okay, so with this, I think I'm gonna end this session today, and I'm gonna keep working on the books. Okay. Thank you so much.